Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James is a dumb bumblebee because he mixes up the terms meridian and equinox. He apologizes. That being said, the intrepid Gifted Underachievers team explores what is seasonal creative affective disorder and how do you drink the most creativeness out of each season of the year. We also discuss the looming Pat's Seasonal Pleasure Journal. This is one not to be missed. Thank you.
James.
What? Is that you? What? Pat?
James Buchanan?
Oh, wait. Hold just a second. I had a conch shell to my ear so I could hear the ocean.
Yeah, because guess what? It's
What?
summer.
Oh my
Summer.
God. Yes. It is after June 21st.
Yeah. And actually, you know what I always want to say when I hear or see the words "it's summer"? I always want to say "summer here, summer there." But that's neither here nor there. I wanted to ask you
Sometime you have to ask me about my potato jokes.
Oh, really? Should I ask you now?
No. We'll do that. That'll be another thing.
Okay. Okay. I'm thinking the word spud might be in there. Anyway, let's get off that. Okay, so thank you for picking up your conch shell.
I put it down actually.
Oh, fuck. So anal. To discuss seasonal. What I want to talk about is the fact that seasons happen. We're humans. If we live in a place with seasons, our behavior changes over depending what kind of season it is. And right now, as we head into summer, we were just earlier talking about the fact that in publishing, things kind of shut down. The inbox, as in our inboxes, aren't getting slammed with requests and or information even.
Well, mine is always slammed because I'm so profoundly and sought after.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Just want to put that out. No.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
yeah.
There
I mean,
is a definite slowdown.
people know that I'm really too important to not take summer vacations, so they don't. Okay, anyway, I wanted to ask you, what's your approach to this change in the season? We were just talking, you're going to go away. I can't say where because the Mounties might come after you, but there's there's a kind of a shift in even where we're recording this particular episode. You're not in your normal place. You're in somewhere else. So I'm curious about what you're doing to adjust to the seasons.
Well,
right now.
So I'm going to an undisclosed location to enjoy the poutine. So there's that. No, I mean there's seasonal creative affective disorder.
Cool. Nice.
Where, so for me, I always go through this sort of I have seasonal delusions, right? Where like right now I'm thinking, summer, it's so busy, because even though some work things are slowing down, it's still very busy.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, there's trying to cut out the time for vacations and, family coming to visit, and there's just more that social stuff going on, so your time gets a little bit more stretched a little bit thinner.
Mm.
I think, oh man, fall is going to be my writing time because
Ooh.
weather's going to be cool. It's like there's this sort of relaxed vibe to fall.
Yeah.
But then I get to fall and it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Then I
It's
think,
busy again.
oh boy, those winter nights, it gets dark at about 4. It's going to be cold, but you're cozy inside. That's the perfect time to write. But then, you're in the middle of it and you're crazy busy. And, so
Yeah.
the delusion is that some season is going to offer this perfect working opportunity. And,
Yeah. It's not true.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
I'm really
I do.
glad you said that.
Oh, good. How come?
Yeah. Because it's my delusion too. In fact, I forgot that I was writing a book until you just mentioned writing.
Ah,
I
ah.
completely forgot. I haven't worked on it in a week.
Yeah, because you're like probably really busy and you've
Yeah.
got, this, vacation going away schedule and, trying to find time. And yeah,
I mean, I have not booked any vacation time this for this summer, but what I do have is this idea that weekends are meant to be weekended in, and
right.
that if I can tack on half a Friday and half a Monday to that, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? I could die tomorrow. I could get hit by a
Yeah,
bus. So I need to make hay while the sun shines, except
right.
for the part where making hay is their work. And that's not what I'm doing when the sun
You're
shines. So
literally out making hay
yeah.
with your tedder.
With my what?
Your tedder.
What's a tedder?
Oh my God, Pat. You are
You
so urban.
want me to look
The
it up? You're not
tedder,
going to.
the tedder is the fluffer of the haying world.
Oh,
For goodness sake.
FFS.
So
Okay.
you go, you cut, you let your hay, your alfalfa, what have you, grow, and then
Mm,
you go out and you cut it down, and
yeah.
it falls over, and it's in long green stalks, right? And so then you come through with your tedder, which is like these little interconnected fingers that spin
Oh, cool.
around
Yeah.
and fluff the windrows of the hay,
Oh,
and
cool.
so it dries.
I love that. I think I'm going to get a
I think
tedder.
fluffs it into windrows, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to
So
look for a tedder in some fucking farmer supply store. And then I'm going to go down to Kitsilano Beach, which is covered with people lying around in bikinis and baby oil. And I'm going to tedder
you're
the
gonna ted
shit
the
out of
shit out of those motherfuckers.
I'll be arrested within about 8 minutes.
Some bitch came down here with a tedder, and now look at me. I've got sand everywhere.
I'm fluffed within an inch of my life. Okay. Oh, but what I was, when you said you have seasonal delusions, I really relate to that because what I'm doing this summer is I'm teaching quite a bit, and neither course has been completely developed the way it's like one of them I've given before, but I've really expanded it, and it's a new kind of course. And the other one is a mentorship, but I haven't given it before. So, and I'm giving it with another person, Susanna Noel, who runs Editorial Arts Academy in Vermont. And so we're going to be kind of building it as we go, which means there's quite a lot of prep. The first time you teach anything, um,
Yeah,
you really have to prep your shit. Otherwise, you're going to be up there like a fish with your mouth open. So
yeah, yeah.
I can't just get online and start tethering people.
Yeah.
I gotta have my stuff ready. And so,
Well,
I'm kind of rushed. I'm rushing around,
yeah,
even though I only have, I think I have two manuscripts in right now for editing, plus two courses. Plus, I'm writing a novel which I forgot about. Plus, I'm trying to build capacity for the fall, so get my systems
yeah,
set up properly. Make sure I got my money in order. Like just all those things that when you're super busy, you kind of can drop the ball on a little bit. That's my whole plan, but that takes the same number of hours as working a
yeah.
ton on manuscripts. So I don't want to work a 60-hour week in the summer. So this delusional part is where I think that I'm going to have all of these giant things done by the end of the summer, because fall is one of my super busy periods. But then I'm
Mhm.
going to get to the end of the summer and go, why didn't I work a little harder on that stuff? And
I
I,
know.
I think, what do you think that's about?
Yeah, reflective seasonal pathology, where you look back at the season that's gone by and think, God, I had so much opportunity. The sun was out so much longer. I could have filled this barn with hay,
Ah,
and we're not quite there yet. And
yeah.
yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is, when you're doing a creative job as opposed to a jobby job,
Mm,
where you work for somebody else
yeah.
specifically,
Right.
um, the work is like water, right?
Oh,
So if you
nicely.
create any space, it's just going to get filled right in with,
Absolutely.
more work.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that metaphor.
yeah. So maybe the better plan, I don't know, maybe thinking about the year in terms of what is it, solstices and is it
Yeah.
meridians or something? But
Mm,
the dates where those seasons change is when you want to have a plan for that season by the end of summer. You know,
mm.
so if we're June 21st to is it October 21st or September 21st? September 21st, I think.
I think it's September,
Yeah, so yeah, which shows what an idiot.
but
It
that we don't know.
yeah, living in my little capsule, shut off from sunlight. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so what am I gonna have done by September 21st is maybe
Yeah,
a better way as
yeah,
opposed to thinking, oh, summer will just provide, or fall will just provide, or
it's
winter,
true.
or have
I
you.
mean, so you're saying, what if there's a bit of intentionality to
Yeah,
choosing what we do? Because the other thing is, I like being outside. I really do.
yeah.
And, to spend a 10 or 12-hour day in a closet is far more tragic in July than it is in December.
Yes. 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 Well, and that's where kind of a delusion comes in is this image of either working, outside with the computer or with, just pen and paper or something like that, like
Yeah.
changing, sort of say, oh, I can, instead of having to be inside, I can do my work outside. But, then you've got your tools inside, right?
Yeah. You're kind of adding
Mm.
time to your work day by trying to basically move the work which has requires tools and has a place set up for it to be done efficiently. Trying to move that out just so you can enjoy, look up once in a while. Um, yeah, it's great, but also it draws it out. For me, I'm not as productive. When I go to the library, I'm pretty productive, and it's a nice walk there and back. But the walk is an half hour each way.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm wondering is for the seasonal delusions. That part is that I don't need to work on it now because guess what? It's going to be super easy if I wait till
Yeah.
the fall. And then woo, the other aspect of it is not really having a honed in plan or conceptualization of what's going to happen during the summer where you can get the shit done that's going to make a difference, that is actually going to put hay in the barn without doing everything. So what if I didn't teach or what if all I did in the summer was teach in one manuscript maybe and then something else that builds capacity but that I can do on a
Mhm.
there's so little I can do without a computer that's the sticking point, right?
Yeah. Well, us being writers, we do, for our own writing, we have that opportunity to just grab pen and paper, right?
Yeah, that's great. I
But
should do more.
but definitely for the work,
Yeah.
the editing and whatnot. Yeah, you need a computer and I've gotten to where, I used to print lots and lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So I would print things and I had, arrangements where I'd have different piles of different papers in different places. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I wanted to go out, I could just grab all the piles and put them in the backpack and, go out and bring the laptop.
Yeah.
But, now I don't want to waste all that paper and ink
Yeah.
and those kinds of things. And I've got a much larger monitor now than I used to have back in the day.
Yeah.
So I can have many more windows open, and it's just a much more efficient way to work. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of that piece of it too.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is there a chance that you would be able to sort of adjust what you work on by the season or just the volume, work on the same kinds of
Yeah.
things all year round, but adjust the volume
Yeah,
for seasons?
I think one, it's really important to make time and space for recreation and relaxation and all that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
summer is the time to do that because it's,
Yeah.
hopefully it's sunny and it's warm and you want to be out and people are out. There's certain advantages I think that you can take. So one of them is, because everybody else wants to have a summer vacation, going to various people and saying, I'm going to take the week of off,
Yeah.
right? there's a lot more forgiveness than if it's randomly, it's some week in March where everybody's really depending on you because they're trying to, get stuff done before such and such. And,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit more opportunity to do that. And yeah, so take advantage of that. As far as fall and winter and spring, I, try and think about what are the advantages of the season and how can I take it, use those to be grow capacity, income, those kinds of things. How can I put
Mm.
them to good use? But the other thing I think about is like actors, summer stock is huge,
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah.
So if you're acting, this is probably a very busy time of year,
Yeah.
you know. Talk about wanting to make hay when the sun is shining. So,
Right. Hey, hey,
uh,
hey.
yeah. So I wonder if they have, a real, a more intense kind of seasonality, or if you're part of an orchestra, right?
Mm.
Um, are you going to be, what does, what is, if you are a violinist in an orchestra, what does your life look like? I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be kind of curious about that.
Is it seasonal? And then yeah, and I'm thinking of, even things like the culinary arts. Do you switch to more catering? Let's say you have a storefront restaurant or whatever, but people are maybe you don't have patio room for people to sit out, so people will choose to go somewhere else in the summer, or they'll just get takeout.
Yeah.
Do you then switch to a little bit more catering, or what's your, I don't know how intentional I can be about any of this stuff because I don't think my brain works that way. Like I have told myself probably for the last 5 years that I'm going to do different stuff in different seasons, and like focus the teaching on fall and winter. Well, I'm not. I didn't do that. Uh, you know, I didn't do that. I forgot. And then
Yeah.
the writing, like you say, it can be done with just a notebook in your brain. So that'd be a great thing to do in the summer. But I didn't do that. I haven't. I
Yeah.
forgot I was writing a book. So what's the answer? I need some guidance.
I don't know. It's this, I do the same thing with other stuff. And usually I have this thinking around Thanksgiving. Or maybe actually it's Halloween where it starts. Because, I love these holidays in terms of, the prep for them, the decoration, the
Yeah,
kind of vibe kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I always find myself either way behind and unable to catch up. So like Halloween's like flown by. Oops,
yeah,
you know, Thanksgiving smashes you in the face, and then all of a sudden it's Christmas, you know?
yeah,
And I wanted to be one of those people, especially when the kids were smaller, and I was better
yeah,
at it when they were smaller. But not great. But I wanted to be one of those people who was like, okay, I've got all the Halloween stuff and it's all packaged properly so I can go and grab it and put it out and and the
yeah.
kids have a great time and then Thanksgiving and and Christmas and but I'm not for
No,
whatever. So how can I do that how can I make myself into that kind of person as a creative? I don't, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I mean, I do think though that different seasons have different feelings, different vibes, different opportunities, and different challenges. And
yeah,
so maybe being a little bit more aware of that would
yeah.
help.
Maybe. And also, I'm just thinking about how, if you, I'm just thinking about for myself because I was mentally beating myself up for not, I don't know, not managing it properly again, for another year. And now I'm thinking, it's like anything. If you want it to change, you have to forgive yourself for all the times it doesn't change before it
Yeah.
does change. So like I want it to change. I mean, we don't know when we're going to die. The idea that we're going to die of old age is just an idea. What if we only have 5 summers left in our entire lives? I don't want to sit in a fucking box all summer if I've only got 5 of them, or even if I
Yeah.
only have 20 of them. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's worth being sort of. not another experiment. It's worth being experimental about.
Well, I'm gonna throw something out there.
Yeah.
How about Pat's pleasure journal?
Hello.
What do you mean, hello?
Well, I
Uh,
mean, well, how about it?
yeah, how about it? How about putting that to work? You know,
Oh,
to plan and structure and think and reflect and those kinds of things.
I'll be ding dang dong. You know what? That is a good idea. In fact, what if I did a different journal that's like the creative's seasonal delusion adjustment journal?
Well,
We could put it
yeah.
out as a GU thing.
Well, I would, this is creating live on air here, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
how about a
Great.
how about a creative, a gifted underachievers creative delusional seasonal journal? That
We're
what
gonna have
about
to
that
work on that title.
seasonal? Yeah, yeah, we're gonna have to workshop the title, but
Yes, I see what you're saying. So in there might be some way to actually kind of get enough is it motivation? Is it awareness of, the things that you can work on differently in the summer? Because for me, the real
yeah,
issue is that I need a computer and it needs to be in a room where I can see the screen, not outside in the blinding light. I
yeah,
need electricity and all that stuff. So, what if I was a lot more, what if I used our guided journal to say, okay, my focus in the summer is going to be these things that are a little more flexible in terms of equipment and location,
yeah,
and then make that
well,
work with the money. That's the part
yeah,
that's interesting to me. How about, like, what if I'm just saying, because I teach in the summer, what if I did live teaching and I go down to a place and I can teach outside? I don't care.
yeah, yeah. There you go. And
Yeah.
I think part of it is. And this is going to sound really squishy, but you say, what does a really awesome summer look like? Right?
Ooh.
So, and you can even be probably specific. What does it look like as a creative and really my domain as a creative, right? And then
Yeah.
what is how you set a deadline and then you work backwards from the deadline?
Yeah. Critical
Right?
path.
So if you use this critical path strategy. So
Yeah.
you think if summer begins June 21st, um, and I have a vision of what the great summer looks like, when do I have to start preparing
Mm.
to be able, working backwards?
Yeah.
When do I have to start preparing to do that? And I keep coming back to this actor thing because I love plays. I love summer stock. It's such a great thing. So if I was an actor, I'd be thinking about, okay, how can I maximize my time on stage, which I would think equals to maximizing exposure, income, and so on, and my capacity as an actor.
Yeah.
And so, um, I would have to think, okay, well, I've got to think about when are they casting,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so when are they announcing the shows at the different theaters? Is there an area I specifically want to be in? And just working backwards so that you have it already scheduled out.
Yeah.
Um, and you can set it on your computer scheduled where you get a reminder that says, hey, it's January 1st. The list of plays for these theaters is coming out as well as,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That's
know,
cool.
and
Okay.
then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Go on. No, go on.
Well,
Well,
and then, adapt it for, if you're an artist, a writer, a da 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 da
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. I love it. And I was just going to say, add to, so this is January, let's say hypothetically, the casting stuff is happening January-ish for summer stock.
Mhm.
What if you start stalking theater directors when they're doing their programming? So if you want to play Hedda
Yeah.
Gabler or whatever, you can be tilting back martinis with the theater director in, say, October, and then you
Yeah.
get called, the role comes up.
Yeah. I mean, you have all that, here's when I need to start my networking. Here are my networking targets,
You're,
like you
you're,
can do all this planning.
You're saying it
And
much better than that's what I meant.
well, I love that your immediate go-to is Hedda Gobbler. Uh, not entirely sure that's in quite the demand. Maybe the Vancouver area, but
But you're thinking Greece is more of a summer stock? Dirty Dancing?
well, out here we've our town, it's the New
Oh
England
God.
thing. So, right.
Very modern. Very modern.
But I'm thinking, so one of my favorite local theaters, its season goes from September through May, right?
Mm, yeah.
And they already have scheduled all of the plays that they're going to do for their 25-26
Oh,
September through
wow.
May season,
Yeah,
right?
I know nothing about that world. Yeah.
So it's about getting into that, figuring out that schedule, right? And so
Hmm.
to think about it from a writing perspective,
Yeah.
we know that publishers and agents have a real slowdown during the summer.
Yeah.
So maybe it's less sending stuff out and having stuff ready to send out as it is that's the time to start preparing to send stuff out for the fall.
Yeah.
Whereas
So
then the fall
writing more
maybe,
stuff.
yeah, so maybe the fall gets a little bit easier because your focus shifts from content creation to submitting pitches and manuscripts and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And and I think, obviously musicians probably it's very similar to actors where, if you're like a bluegrass musician or play in a very specific kind of genre or zone, there's going to be these festivals and these opportunities that you want to be part of.
Yeah.
So,
Love it.
yeah, so maybe it's really just about gathering the context,
Oh,
right? Right?
yes. Gather the context while ye
Gathering
may.
gathering the context
Yeah.
and then saying, yeah, by June 21st, I want to have this in place because that to me is going to be an awesome summer. And
Yeah.
then doing that scheduling backwards.
Love it. So have a vision, like come from your heart. What do you like doing in the summer? I love swimming.
Mhm.
I love like sort of staring at trees. So some stuff.
Yeah, Pat, if you're ever walking by a window and somebody's staring off into the middle distance, that's probably Pat having a little downtime.
Yeah. So you have your vision, and then you gather context. And as you gather the context, your vision might morph a little because you're
Yeah,
seeing what's actually out there happening in that time frame of year, and then you're working back from that to go, okay, well, if I want to participate in that, like I don't know when the Vancouver's Writers Fest is, and I don't even know if I
right.
want to participate. I'd have to think, would that be part of my summer? But let's say I did, and it is in the summer. I'd have to know when they're doing their programming for that, what they're looking for if I wanted to pitch anything, because I'm sure I think it's mostly invitation, but I think they also take pitches. So um, anything like that, when we're
Yeah,
thinking about the London Podcast Fest in
yeah,
2026, like it's in September. What does a great trip look like? You know,
yeah. We
I
have to
know it's
pathway that out
yeah,
and do some context gathering. And I think, the other piece that you mentioned too is that you're going to find out what is your delusional fantasy summer and
yeah,
what is actually something that you can do that would be pretty good too.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. That
so
if you look back and say 5 years from now, you realize that you only had the 5 summers. It's over. Would that one look like a good summer? Or would it look like
yeah.
a panic fest of missed opportunities?
Yeah. So I would think, so you're looking at June, July, August, right?
Mhm.
And so, all right, what is, how can I get the most out of June? And then how can I get the most out of July? And, do I want to have a week at a writers conference? There's
Yeah,
the ones that are curated, so you've got to, win admittance to, but there's
yeah.
lots of them where you just show up with the fee
No,
and you're in,
one
right?
there's one I'm
And
going to in
Spain or
Braylorn adjacent at the end of July. That's the kind of thing you'd want to plan ahead for.
yeah, yeah. I thought you were talking about your bigger trip to the Spain, Italy zone.
Palermo, Spain.
The Palermo,
Yeah,
Spain.
yeah, I'm gonna be there for a month.
Uh,
Yeah, you know.
but
But you're
but
right.
yeah,
It would be a good time actually now to start thinking what would an ideal month look like
yeah.
there.
Well, and then balancing it because you mentioned it too. What do you like to do? Well,
Mhm.
swim,
Yeah,
have some meditation time. And obviously, there's going to be family obligations, you want to do stuff with your kids and those kinds of things. And so,
yeah,
yeah, so I think that's where your delusional, dreamy self smacks into reality, which is like, yes, I
yeah,
want to go for this week writing retreat. I also want to go for a week vacation that is meaningful to me.
yeah,
Um, and in and around all that stuff, I want to go see some shows with the kids. I want to go out to some dinners. I want to,
yeah.
so how do I
Well,
create space?
you run out of runway in some ways because I mean, I'm lucky that I can be fairly autonomous, but I do have young adult children, and I want to be around them this summer. I want to see, them, obviously. And then um, imagine, you don't have to imagine because this is your situation. You're in a partnership with somebody who gets paid vacations, right? Weeks off,
Yeah.
and they need to schedule them in advance. And then, you're a self-employed creative. You have shit coming down the pipe all the time. It never stops.
Hmm.
Um, and so how do you kind of go, well, what's the best of myself I can give to this relationship in this context of, the
Hmm.
summer, it's family time, it's together time, whatever time it is for you as a person. Um, and not lose my rag or come back to a mountain so high that I just want to, burrow
Yeah.
into it.
Burning up on reentry.
Oh God, right? We've both
Yeah.
done that and it hurts
Yeah.
like hell. And it's almost like you never had a vacation.
Yeah. And it also makes being on the vacation difficult to really
Yeah.
enjoy because
Stressful.
you're constantly thinking, oh, I've got all this stuff that's just getting more and more and more behind.
Yeah.
And I think, probably this is a whole other segment, but that sort of cycle of work
Yeah.
is rarely predictable,
Well, that's it. That's it.
and and often hard to control because it's based on the whims and desires of other people.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, when I'm able to take time off, Monique isn't. And then when she's like, oh, I've planned this vacation months ahead of time, and it's like, well, shit, I just got buried by 30,000 things that I can't
Yeah.
say no
Yeah.
to. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
a challenge. So,
And
so,
and
so
it
this intentionality might help.
yeah, it will. I think so. And I was just thinking about 2022. I took a month in Italy. I did not check my work email because I cleared the decks. That was very difficult to manage without taking a huge pay cut
Mm,
because the kinds of projects I work on, um, I book in advance. I usually book, a few weeks,
mm,
sometimes even months down the pipe. I try to keep it 2 weeks because I don't like being booked up too far in advance. But the other part is they are long turnaround times quite often, or I stagger entries so that I'm working on one 8-week project. And then 3 weeks later, a 5-week one comes in, 5 to 6 weeks. So there's always this kind of like almost like a cycle of like a leapfrog, a one project over another and over another. It's very hard to stop the leapfrogging when that's the rhythm of the industry.
yeah. So I think, yeah, this is all really good stuff. And I think people don't have to wait for the Gifted Underachievers seasonal pleasure journal uh, to come. Though perhaps it's in the works. We'll let you know around Christmas time. Uh,
Yeah, that's when planning should start anyway.
yeah, it's the new year is there you go.
Yeah.
But I think lots of good ideas for how to not feel like shit. I'm in the middle of summer and I'm wasting it. And I've now only got 4 left.
Yeah.
So, bummer.
Yeah, gonna die.
Yeah. Our parents won't, but we will.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. Womp. Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else you like to listen to podcasts. And we would love it if you would press the share and or subscribe button. We're free, gonna stay free, not gonna do very much, if any, marketing at all to anybody. So we'd love to have you as a subscriber and pass it along to other folks. Thank you very much and have an awesome day.